Oh, hello, America, and hello, nuclear aficionados around the world. Welcome to nuclear.com Daily. This is Tuesday, December 10th, 2013. I'm Steve Schulin of nuclear.com, coming to you from North Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. It's a pleasure and an honor to be part of your day. Those of you listening in later via podcast or via YouTube, please know that you are welcome, wanted, and encouraged to come join in live every Monday through Friday, starting at 12:05 p.m. Eastern Time. You can join in just like dialing into a conference call. Thanks to the good folks at TalkShoe.com who provide this most excellent platform. The number is 724-444-7444. You'll be asked for a call ID. That is 95348#. So come one, come all of goodwill to nuclear.com daily. Let us reason together. Nuclear is in the news on the front pages every day. The folks at newseum.org put out a compilation. Today there were like 900 front pages that they put out. Now you can't search those front pages. They're right on the newseum.org website. But they do make it so you can download the PDF files. And one of the things that I do is, I've got an employee, my first employee here in North Myrtle Beach. First thing she does in the morning is download those PDF files. We use a neat program called Speed Download, and we take the source file from newseum.org, and from the information that's on the source file, where they list the newspapers, we're able to change the file names that they list there to go along with the format that they use for presenting the PDF files for download. Anyway, so pretty much in a half an hour, we're able to download 900 front pages from that list that we harvest, and then we can search the front pages of the PDFs. Now, not all the PDFs are actually searchable, but check out the front pages today. These are all examples of stories that and papers that had to do with nuclear, and I've got them organized and marked. And we'll start off with nuclear power related news in the U.S. and abroad. We'll go to Savannah River story, and story on nuclear weapons, Russia and the United States work. Then a bunch of stories on Iran, and then a front page New York Times story we'll end off with on North Korea. This is something that you won't see or hear anywhere else in the world. This nuclear.com daily front page review. Please tell your friends, tell your professional acquaintances. If you're in LinkedIn, tell people about it. I'd love nothing better than to have hundreds more folks downloading these daily podcasts. You're driving 45 minutes a day to work at a nuclear plant. Heck, make this part of your routine. Keep abreast of what's new in things nuclear. All right. The story I wanted to emphasize today is out of the Tennessean newspaper, printed in Nashville, Tennessee, and their emphasis is on hydro, the bountiful hydroelectric power this summer. Heavy rainfall brings record year for hydro generation at TVA's 29 dams, and it means lower energy bills and they show the costs of producing different kinds of power, and you can see the cheapest is hydro at $3 per megawatt hour. And you notice that I've got nuclear circled because it is the second lowest at $6 per megawatt hour, followed by coal at 25, modern natural gas 33, old-fashioned gas plants 60, and then large-scale solar $69 per megawatt hour. Their wind power costs them $79 per megawatt hour. This is compared to $6 a megawatt hour for nuclear. And their small scale solar at $183 per megawatt hour. I think this is really good data for nuclear folks when you're talking to folks who talk about how expensive nuclear is. Say, well, yes, it is expensive, but compared to the other sources of energy, except for hydro, it's a bargain. $6 nuclear. That's if you want to pay 4 times more, you still can't afford coal. You want to pay 5 times more, you still can't afford the highest efficiency natural gas that TVA has. If you want to pay 10 times more, you can afford conventional natural gas. If you want to pay 11 times more, you still can't afford large-scale solar. If you want to pay 13 times more, you still can't afford wind power. And let's see, 6 into 183, well, you get the gist of things. Small-scale solar is certainly not an alternative to nuclear plants. I'm pro-nuclear because I'm pro-life. I favor nuclear because of the environmental advantages of not putting out air pollution. Yes, you have high-level waste, but it's very small for the nuclear plants. With the coal plants, it's not high-level toxicity stuff that's put out, but it's put out the stack. And the long-term waste storage solution is your lungs, your children's lungs, your grandchildren's lungs, your elderly parents' lungs. That's not an environmental advantage for coal or natural gas or oil. Anyway, that's why I'm pro nuclear, is the environmental reasons. But this economic advantage that TVA is showing really shows a wisdom in those folks who chose to build nuclear plants back in the 60s and 70s and some even in the 80s. All right, next in the news, an Arkansas paper, sort of close to Russellville, but not the closest paper. But they carried the story about a transformer fire there at Arkansas Nuclear 1. One of the 2 units of the plant was taken offline, and it was a transformer fire in the non-nuclear portion of the site. The cause of the fire wasn't immediately known, and it also wasn't known when the idled plant could be restarted. International nuclear power in the news. The top story, or the lead story in the Deccan Chronicle, South India, the city of Decca. They have a story about an anti-nuclear activist, Bhushan, who is arriving in Decca, I think Decca, to woo a party. VS, I can't even pronounce his last name. Akuthandan. Akuthandan. V.S. Akuthandan. All right. After the stunning victory in the Delhi Assembly polls, the AAP, that's a party, the Aam Party, has welcomed opposition leader V.S. Akuthandan into the party, even as the veteran leader congratulated the fledgling political outfit on its win. Senior Supreme Court lawyer and party functionary, AAP party, functionary Prashant Bhushan told the Deccan Chronicle that he would be calling on Mr. Akuthandan during his visit to the town of, and I can't pronounce this town either, Thiruvananthapuram from December 29th to 30th. Yes, I will be meeting him, he said, and added that he would also go to Kudankulam to meet Uday Kumar, leader of the People's Movement Against Nuclear Energy, which is spearheading the stir against the Kudankulam plant. So anti-nuclear makes front page in India. Back to the United States, Savannah River story is one of the top stories here in the Aiken Standard Committee to discuss uranium shipments by Aiken Standard reporter Derek Asbury. A local committee today will discuss foreign shipments of uranium potentially coming to the Savannah River site. The highly enriched uranium, HEU, would come from Canada and Germany as part of separate international agreements. The Nuclear Materials Committee, a committee under the Savannah River Site Citizens Advisory Board, will hold the discussion during its meeting from 4 to 5:50 p.m. The meeting will be held at the Department of Energy Meeting Center, which is on Village Green Boulevard there in Aiken. With HEU shipments being such a controversial topic, Committee Chair Rose Hayes said the committee has to allow time for public comment before it can take a position. The story's continued on page 12. You can see the full article at aikenstandard.com. AIKEN. aikenstandard.com. Interesting nuclear weapons story at the bottom of the front page of the Chicago Tribune today. Let's see the picture of the woman. That's an Argonne scientist. From Soviet warheads to nuclear fuel is the headline. Subhead: Argonne scientists in Russia modified uranium in weapons for use in U.S. power plants, by Tribune reporter Julie Warnow. And here's how it begins. For 16 years, Argonne National Laboratory scientist Cindy Boggs, and that's who the photo was of, helped usher enough nuclear material to the U.S. from Russia's secret weapons arsenal to destroy the world several times over. Her work was part of a quiet post-Cold War program aimed at making sure warheads from the collapsed Soviet Union did not fall into the wrong hands, while at the same time supplying fuel to America's nuclear power plants. In all, the program, run out of Argonne's campus near Lamont, Illinois, repurposed about 20,000 Soviet warheads. Dr. Boggs, 64, said she and her American co-workers were constantly monitored at the hotel where they lived, as well as the lab where they worked, in a tightly secured town in the Ural Mountains. The town was composed of 100,000 people who were all involved in enriching uranium. It was highly technical work with a dollop of spy thriller intrigue. If we asked a question that was dot, 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 and the stories continued on page 9. You can see the full story at chicagotribune.com. All right, a bunch of stories on Iran. The lead story in USA Today is, some folks say you never go broke underestimating the taste or intelligence of the American people, but I think this poll shows the American people have a pretty good perspective on the Iranian deal. Here's the headline. It's about a USA Today Pew poll, and let's see here. It's titled "Few Trust Iran on Nuclear Accord. More than 2-to-1 say Tehran is not serious about halting activity." Count me in that majority. Anyway, the story is by USA Today reporter Susan Page, Dateline Washington, and they have a little sidebar that they title "Skeptical Public." And here's the poll question: do you approve of the agreement between the U.S. and Iran on Iran's nuclear program? 32% approve, 43% disapprove, 25% either don't know or just refused to answer. This poll was taken December 3rd through 8th, and the sample size and selection allows Pew Research Center to claim a margin of error of 3%. So between 40 and 46% disapprove of the Iran Accord. The White House and Iran face an uphill selling job to convince Americans to embrace the interim nuclear pact negotiated with Tehran last month, the poll finds. In the survey taken Tuesday through Sunday, 32% approve of the deal, 43% disapprove, 1 in 4 don't know or decline to answer by more than 2-to-1, 62% to 29%. Those who have heard something about the accord say Iranian leaders aren't serious about addressing concerns about their country's nuclear program. That skepticism presumably reflects decades of conflict since the Iranian hostage crisis began in 1979. In November, Tehran agreed to freeze parts of its nuclear program for 6 months in exchange for relief from some economic sanctions. Negotiations for a more permanent pact continue. Winning over Americans is one reason Iran is pursuing an agreement, says Ray Takei, a former senior advisor on Iran at the State Department, who is a fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations. Quote, part of their diplomacy is to turn around public opinion in the United States as a means of mitigating against military action, he says. Public opinion is also a factor for alleged President Obama, says Vali Nasser, a former advisor to the Obama State Department and dean of the Johns Hopkins University School of Advanced International Studies. Quote, getting any kind of deal he arrives at with Iran accepted by Congress and the American public will be his challenge, Nasser says. You go into a room thinking about what will be saleable back home, not only in Iran, not only to the government, but also to the people. Secretary of State John Kerry is scheduled to testify today before the House Foreign Affairs Committee to defend the agreement. The administration is trying to ward off a move to impose more sanctions on Iran. Those surveyed split on how Obama is handling Iran. 39% approve, 44% disapprove. That's better than just before the accord, when Americans disapproved by 53 to 37. Jerusalem Post has two stories related to Iran. Down below the fold, they have a Reuters piece, which was similar to a Reuters story in the Duluth News Tribune. I'll go ahead and read the Duluth story. Iran nuke deal is dead if Congress passes new sanction, was the Jerusalem Post article. But actually, I'm going to read this one out of the Jerusalem Post because it has some quotes in it that the Duluth News Tribune story did not include, or at least not in the order in which they were presented here in the Jerusalem Post. Dateline, Washington. Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif said the Iranian nuclear deal would be dead if the U.S. Congress imposes new sanctions, even if they do not take effect for 6 months, Time magazine said on Monday. In a transcript of the interview, which was conducted on Saturday and posted online on Monday, Time said it asked Zarif what happens if Congress imposes new sanctions, even if they do not go into effect for 6 months. According to the magazine, he replied, "The entire deal is dead." Zarif was referring to a November 24th agreement with 6 world powers, under which Tehran would curb its nuclear program in exchange for limited relief from economic sanctions. Quote, "We do not like to negotiate under duress," Zarif added. "If Congress adopts sanctions, it shows a lack of seriousness and a lack of desire to achieve a resolution on the part of the ... continued on page 10. It was that comment about we do not like to negotiate under duress, and if Congress adopts sanctions, it shows a lack of seriousness and a lack of desire to achieve a resolution. So that's what Iran said. They said if you don't back off forever on the sanctions, forget about it. The deal is dead. You're not serious. Anyway, the title of the Reuters piece in the Duluth News Tribune is very similar. Iran foreign minister, sanctions would kill the deal. The Gulf News, it was interesting. Usually they just have the front pages. But the Gulf News had their page 19 highlighted on museum.org. And included there were 2 stories on Iran nuclear. First, the smaller story is Iran claims improvement in missile accuracy. It's an AP story. Iran's defense minister says his country is now using laser systems to dramatically improve the accuracy of its ballistic missiles. Hussein Degan said missiles can now hit to within 2 meters of their targets compared to the 200 meters previously. His comments were posted on the ministry's website yesterday. Iran frequently announced breakthroughs in military technology that are impossible to independently verify. Iran has a variety of missiles, some with a reported range of 2,000 kilometers, enough to reach much of the Middle East. Commanders have described them as a deterrent, capable of hitting a U.S. base or an Israeli target in the event of a strike on Iran. The Pentagon released a rare public report last year noting that Iran has improved its missile capabilities. And then the main Iran story, there at the top of the page from Agency France Presse, work starts to implement Iran deal. Subhead, will seek to nail down the start date of the promised 6-month nuclear freeze. So we talk about a 6-month deal, and it's been slightly more than a couple weeks since this deal was announced, and the 6-month timer hasn't even kicked in yet, because that's one of the things they have yet to negotiate is when the 6-month ticker begins. Anyway, here's the Agency France Press story. Technical experts from Iran, world powers, and the UN atomic watchdog were due to start working out yesterday the nuts and bolts of implementing last month's landmark nuclear deal. In particular, the 2-day Vienna meeting will seek to nail down the start date of Iran's promised 6-month nuclear freeze, how this will be monitored, and when sanctions will be eased. After the talks with representatives from the U.S., China, Russia, Britain, France, and Germany, the P5+1, Iranian officials will then meet just with the IAEA tomorrow. In a major diplomatic breakthrough in Geneva on November 24th, Tehran committed to limit uranium enrichment to low fissile purities for 6 months and not to make further advances at its Fordo, Natanz, and Arak facilities. Iran will also neutralize its stockpile of medium-enriched uranium, which is easy to convert to weapons grade, and allow more intrusive IAEA inspections. Iran's envoy to the IAEA, Reza Najafi, told reporters on November 29th that he expected the implementation of the deal to begin either at the end of December or the beginning of January. The measures will lengthen the time Iran would need to develop nuclear weapons if they choose to. And the deal aims to build trust while a longer-term comprehensive accord is negotiated. Israel, however, widely believed to have nuclear weapons itself, has sharply criticized the Geneva deal, with Prime Minister Netanyahu calling it a historic mistake. The deal, coupled with Washington's reluctance to take military action against the Tehran-backed Syrian regime, has also irked mostly Sunni Gulf states that view Shiite Iran as a serious threat. Iran's chief negotiator, Abbas Araki, said on Sunday that Iranian central bank officials and sanctions experts would also be present in Vienna. One of several rounds, he said, would take place in the coming 6 months. Under the deal, the P5+1 will release oil revenues frozen in bank accounts and ease some trade restrictions in a package worth $7 billion. The core architecture of oil finance and banking sanctions will, however, remain in place, resulting in lost oil revenues of $30 billion over the 6-month period covered by the agreement, according to the White House. And now at the bottom of the page, another story about Iran. Hamas has resumed ties with Iran, says Al-Zahar. Dateline Gaza City. Subhead, we are not interfering in the Syrian case or in any other Arab countries, the official asserts. I imagine that's the Hamas official. Hamas has resumed relations with Iran after a temporary falling out over the Syrian conflict. A senior member of the Palestinian Islamist movement said yesterday, relations between Hamas and Iran have resumed. Mahmoud al-Zuhair told reporters at a news conference in Gaza, which is the Palestinian enclave ruled by the Hamas group since 2007. Ties had been, quote, affected by the serious situation and others. So thanks, Gulf News. Interesting stuff. Arab Times out of Kuwait has a similar front page story. Experts tackle details of Iran nuclear deal. The Kuwait Times, Kuwait seeks to calm Saudi-Omani spat with U.S. ties frayed. Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, calls for Gulf Union. We talked about that yesterday. Several of the Gulf Cooperation Council nations, which was set up shortly after the Iranian Revolution, 1979. Several of them want to form a bloc, just like the European Union, to replace the council model. Final story, North Korea. This was front page in the New York Times today. It also was reprinted on the front page of the Sacramento Bee. So coast-to-coast coverage for this one. Public ouster in North Korea unsettles China. It shows the new boy president with a distinguished-looking military man. Public ouster in North Korea unsettles China. Uncle was seen as the trusted adult who would monitor Kim. And that was making a lot of play on TV news yesterday, showing some really dramatic footage of the uncle being led out of a Communist Party meeting, forcibly ejected. And, of course, speculation on what has become of the uncle, who was apparently one of the leading mentors to the young heir of the fellow I called Kim Jong mentally ill. All right. Well, thanks for joining in today. That's the nuclear.com daily front page review. Hope you have a most delightful rest of the day. And those of you in the nuclear biz, make it another safe one, my friends. This is Steve Schulin signing off for nuclear.com daily.